governor's speech last night. Sounded a lot like this, but I'm only going to play like about a minute of it, or not even, maybe 2 minutes. We'll see.
Thank you, everybody. I have long believed that the future is not just something to experience, it's something to manifest. That our fate and future is inside of us. It's decisions at the end of the day, not conditions that determine that fate and future. We're not victims of circumstance. We can make decisions to meet moments. This is a moment we need to make tough decisions. This is a moment where we need some straight talk, and we need to tell people the truth. We need to bend the curve in the state of California. And in order to do that, we need to recognize reality. The fact is, the experience we're having on the ground throughout the state of California.
Okay, that's good enough for all the audio clips, probably. All right, so the reason I wanted to kind of go over some of that, like I was saying, is just because in these strange times, and we have experienced them throughout our history, all four of my grandparents served in the Second World War. So I'm sure we've all heard some stories, not just from that, but other trying times. I mean, even like the AIDS epidemic about 30 years ago, that was one that you had to swap bodily fluids, but if you get it, you die, at least until sometime in the 90s. So what happens though is we lose our we sort of lose our footing in the world. We lose our order. And I think before this whole thing, the last few days or weeks or whatever, we didn't have a very solidified order, but we had one that kind of made things work. But now, like I said a little bit when we were kind of preparing for this, what we're really worried about is, yes, if someone is dying or, getting or starving or getting kicked out of their home or some of those horrible things, then handle that. But hopefully with a level head. It's kind of like a war, but it's more of a psychological war than one that we fight with bullets or swords or any of those kind of things. Because if we're not careful, we can lose our minds and do stupid things, or I don't know if I want to even say stupid, since we're starting to try to be a little more sensitive. We can do things we will regret, and that's part of the pragmatic way to start looking at some of this is rise above it a little bit, look at it, because I do believe, even China has made progress just in the fact that for the most part, what they've seen there, people will get this disease and not everyone will recover, but the vast majority. So not that that's okay, that 1 to 5% of people might pass away depending on their health conditions already, but we will get through it some way. And but the ones who do, which is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 99% of us, maybe, give or take in those numbers, depending on a lot of factors, we will be able to look back at it, hopefully, as something that built character. That's why, which one was it? I made a little, just kind of taking some notes where to go. Anyway, we want things to, he was talking about in that thing, where'd it go? About how the goal is building character, even in spite of suffering and the complexity and things being unknown in life. And that's really the goal, rather than happiness, because happiness is such a fleeting thing, and no matter what we do in life, we're all going to have moments of happiness and moments of sadness. So the real goal is to build character. And oh, here's the one I was looking for. But yeah, so we've got just a couple people here, but yeah, I just wanted to kind of discuss where people's heads are, and um, whether that's now, in the past, in the future, and how we can better communicate and better have a value structure, because I feel like these kind of times, they will definitely rebuild our value structures for better or worse, because I'll get off my tangent here in just a second, but like I'm a little disappointed in our, not now necessarily, but like how we went through the recession, from 2008, because mostly all people did was just be like, okay, give us money, give us money, give us money, and that there's a place for that. But there wasn't a lot of character building that came out of that whole recession, and I think that recession will be, in some ways, that one will probably have been a lot worse than this one. This one will probably be not as bad as 2008, but it will be a little scarier in some ways, just because the 2008 recession was kind of invisible. It was just this thing going on with banks for the most part, until it trickled down and all that. But yeah, I just hope this whole thing will help us all build character and build a better value system, and better ways to communicate and understand each other.
Absolutely, it's an opportunity for growth.
Yeah.
All these moments. That's ultimately what they are at the bedrock of it. They're opportunities for growth and to learn from our mistakes. And
Right.
I'm glad that you brought up the financial crisis, because we did not learn from those mistakes.
Right.
Why the hell not? What's wrong? Why didn't why can't we get more people to care? I've been nailing down a few things just in my own personal journey in this mess. And I
Mhm.
think one of it's like, yes, we can frame it in all these different things: order and chaos and personal responsibility. I think ultimately we're just still
Mhm.
dealing with the it's cool to be stupid, it's dumb to be a nerd thing, this cultural meme that emerged, like, like 80s 90s, like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, pick on the nerd, the smart one,
Yeah.
like. And I feel like we're still kind of dealing with that, like the death of expertise. And anytime you try to make, complicated, nuanced arguments or get into philosophical shit, people are just like, oh, shut
Right. Right.
up,
Right.
nerd.
Or
Everything's
like,
so
what's the
shallow.
word? You're a pseudo intellectual. Shut up.
Yes. Yeah.
Hate that.
Yeah, that's I am. See, and even if you call yourself an armchair philosopher, that's such a douchey thing to say. Like, it's
Yeah,
like
on both
I.
sides.
So I mean, I don't know. I think this is just culturally, intellect is beaten out of us. We beat it out of our kids. We teach them to
Right.
conform and to memorize and to fall in line, as opposed to
Right. Right.
grow and learn, and be themselves. We still are fighting that fucking war.
Right.
But it's just this idea that, like, anybody who stands out, anybody who's different, anybody who is frankly fucking smarter, just shut them up, get them out.
Right.
It's the mob. It's a mob mentality. So I think if we're talking about forming a new, um, in ways that people are going to frame as like, we're founding a new church, but like in a secular kind of way, that's really what we're talking about, is establishing a new kind of ethical and moral framework to support us during times like this, when we don't need to be tapped on the shoulder and say, like, hey, like, don't break into your neighbor's house to steal their shit because you're,
Right.
freaked out. Like, it's I don't know. We tolerate a lot of stupidity in the people that are in charge. We tolerate a lot of incompetence in the people that we elect to represent us. Um, and there's how do you go about that? A lot of people are saying torches and pitchforks and guillotines. I'm
Right.
saying microphones and headphones and podcasts and
Right.
live streams.
Right.
So thank you very much for inviting me in on this. I have
Yeah.
never read that book. I have never read a single one of Jordan's books because
Okay.
I don't read books. And you were like, "Hey, read this intro," and I was like, "Oh, I absolutely will. I will
Yeah.
try." But I'm not good with text. I had to
I'm
read
I'm
that
the
in
same
his
way.
voice, and
Yeah.
it still didn't work.
I'm the same way, and yeah, like I'll even get books. Like this is the one he did on. You know, this is a college textbook for his
Mm.
class, but I don't know if I'll ever. Well, the way that I usually do it personally, if I can get the audio, like this even has like a 30-hour audio version, uh, which I did get through last year. But I'll go through the audio. But the nice thing with audio, like if I had to read this, like yeah, it just takes all of your like mind, body, and attention.
Mm.
Uh, Whereas I can listen to audio and then go about my business. And then if there's something important, I can stop it, maybe pick up the book or the digital book, um, you know, go over the
Yeah.
important parts.
Flip
Which I
back a
think,
chapter if you need to. I mean, that's
yeah,
how I got into audiobooks at
yeah,
all
I
because I
think it's
can't.
kind of, yeah,
Like reading is so fucking hard for me. I can't.
yeah. I mean, yeah, and I think that's the way that we're built for the most part
Mm.
because if you think about it, whatever, we've been on this world for however many generations, at least 1,000, maybe however many thousands of generations or whatever, and literacy is pretty brand new in that scale.
Oh yeah.
So for the most part, all we've ever done is talk things and tell stories, and it's been all oral. And so that's the way that we've always learned is interacting and some type of oral tradition. So that's why I'm really glad to see the rise of the audio world of audiobooks and podcasts and everything else.
Oh my god, you just invoke like oh my gosh, because anatomically modern humans like
Yeah,
you and me, exactly like us, exact same, capabilities of mind and compassion and, understanding. 200,000 years, 200,000 years we've had writing for what like maybe 5 or 10. I don't study, but I like the thing is like that everybody can read and write. That's like 1,000 years old
yeah, it's
maybe, and still not everybody can read and write. Illiteracy is
right,
still a huge problem, but we are a species of storytellers. And
right,
I'm going to be doing a whole campfire thing because I've been trying to think of a way to do this to create kind of like secular sermons. Sorry to
mm,
hijack that from you, Corey Cottrell, but I'm totally doing it. And I think the first one that I'm going to do, and you just helped me write it, basically is around Ubuntu philosophy, which is like we need the campfire because we are a species of storytellers. We are a species of let me talk to you, let me see your face, kind of, to understand you and feel you and hear you and know you.
right,
And so much of this is in the breakdown of our discourse is we're doing this chicken scratch bullshit with emojis and
yeah,
bad punctuation and almost nobody can spell or and so it leads to all kinds of conflict that's like not even really there because you could text somebody and be like, hey, get back to me about this, and they go, okay, and it's just two
yeah,
letters, it's just two okay, but you can
right,
hear
right.
that as like okay or like ugh, okay.
What does that
It's like,
bitch mean? I hate
yeah,
her. How
I
dare
fucking
she
hate
say
text.
okay? Or it
Yeah.
could be like, oh my god, she said okay. I think she's in love with me.
Mm. Yeah. Text is horrible. We are a
Yeah,
species of storytellers, and we need to just be better about recognizing that. So I think whatever new what and this is great because you framed this as rediscovering something that's kind of already there as opposed to making something new, making
right.
a new church. Like we need to build a building, a cathedral, so to speak, to
Mm,
house it. But the thing
mm,
has really always been there.
it's always right here, no matter what,
Yeah.
throughout at least tens of thousands of years, and it always will be as long as there are humans. There's that's why, and I don't have all the references, but in many cultures, most cultures throughout history, in some way they will call the mind and or body the temple. And what they're talking about is it's saying it, like this whole thing of having big religious buildings. Sometimes we make a big deal of it in our culture, like, oh, Buddhists go to temples and Christians go to churches or cathedrals or whatever else. That's still relatively new between in some cultures, maybe almost 3,000 years ish, but in I don't know if it goes back that long, but over 2,000 anyway. And most of the world, 1 to 2,000 years. But throughout history, it's been we have our temple right here, and that's what connects us. And the other book and author that I meant to put on the list, but I always forget because it's a little new to me, is Master and the Emissary, The Divided Brain by Ian McGilchrist. But he does a lot of what we're talking about now, and we talked about the other day, which is this idea that we're sort of new in understanding how we are as being separate from nature and separate from each other. Throughout history, mostly it's like a young child. They don't really understand the idea of the self individual. At some point they do, between maybe 3 and 10 years old, depending on the child. And we're sort of the same way. And in some ways that's more true, in some ways it's not. But for sure, and this is kind of why I wanted to start having these kind of chats, even just for a few minutes here and there throughout this quarantine. Who knows if it'll be a week, 2 weeks, 2 months, who knows? Because, like, even if we were just shut up in our houses, one individual per house, whatever, because we're that quarantined, or one family per house, or whatever the case, we still all have the same mind, and that we have the same mental structure, and so we're always connected no matter what. But when we come together, even in communication like this, sort of virtual communication, since we can't as much get together for real, face-to-face communication like we normally do, it connects us, and that's where I thought sort of the myth / metaphor worked, where we're sort of rebuilding. I don't know if I would. Church is a tough word, but sometimes.
Everybody calls it something different, man. It's the synagogue, it's the temple, it's like if you're a Mormon, it's that weird ass fucking Disney castle with golden bathtubs. It's my San Diego people will get a kick out of that. That was always amusing.
But what it comes down to, and this is something that was talked about in that introduction, was it's a shared value structure. And what the great philosophers and psychologists and everything else don't all agree on, but a lot of them do, is that we actually all have the same value structure, or very close to the same value structure. But for some of us, it's more conscious, and some of us, it's more unconscious. And so the reason and how that works is, it's just like you could take a squirrel, take isolated squirrel, raise him in captivity, so he's hardly ever seen another thing, and like fed just milk or whatever. And then what you do is you put him in. He's never even seen another squirrel since he was born. All right, this is a real thing, but I'm not sure if it's squirrel or chipmunk. Anyway, you put him in with an acorn or one of those nuts that they like, and he'll instantly walk up to it, smell it, and know how to get into it the way that only those animals know how to do. So it's like this innate, built-in survival mechanism that nobody has to teach them now. Humans are the same way in a lot of weird ways because we have built up our moral structure and value structure for at least tens of thousands of years, maybe 100, 200,000 years plus. And then if you really, and that's one thing that sometimes Jordan Peterson has some debate on when he talks about his lobster hierarchy. What he's talking about is that if you look at the behavior of lobsters, that's the first chapter of the 12 Rules for Life book. They have their own sort of moral code and their own hierarchy of behaviors and everything else. And they have very simple nervous systems. And you can even see how it plays out. I haven't read that chapter in a while. But you can see how it plays out. And if you're a thinking real Darwin terms, that's our distant relative, a lobster, and that we are descendants of lobsters, however many like millions of years or whatever. But that's just to say that we have these innate structures and we have to rediscover them. And one thing that I kind of feel like, whether we want to call it nature or human nature or whatever, is sometimes when there's these sort of shakings in the, like whether it's a war, a famine, a major virus like this, is it will help people rediscover those values. And in some weird way, whether that's a spiritual thing, psychological thing, or synchronistic, coincidental thing, whatever, sometimes for us to get past that thing, and it really makes sense, but we have to learn something from it. So, like, to get out of this virus situation, we have to get our heads together and start working together and overcome it. Because on the other hand, if we don't, the more that we freak out, stab each other, go nuts, break into each other's places, OD on certain pills, ruin the economy, then it's like, this thing that could have played itself out. Yes, totally sad, whoever dies, whatever their condition is, but we could potentially get through it in a few months and then get the economy back on track and everything else. If we can go through it like mature, grown-up human beings instead of getting out of control.
Yeah. I actually think, because you made an important point there,
Yeah.
because you invoked what it's like to be a kid, and I think it's actually, we don't need to be grown-ups, we need to be kids right now, because this is, and I love that you invoked the whole like squirrels and chipmunks thing, because I was just literally going to rodents. So I was like, this is the rat race effect. We need to just like, people forgot. We forgot. We need to remind people, you know what I mean? And we need to bring out the inner child who already understands this shit, who's understood it their whole lives, but it just got beaten down and silenced and shoved into a corner. And yeah, man, I think we put a nail really deep in something there. It's flags. Just ideas for my secular sermon on Sunday morning.
All right.
I love that we do need a secular way to talk about it. It and there needs to be some kind of place to go do that. And framing is really important
Right.
because obviously you're invoking all kinds of tribal loyalties, or like, oh,
Mm.
I can't do that. I can't eat this. I can't dress that way, just because of this. This is, the structure that I'm already in. So
Right.
we need to be careful about, I think, how we phrase it.
Right.
This is
Right.
why the Humanity First series on my show is kind of at the right angle, the right approach, because it's just about the humanity part. And I think I want to invoke maybe something into, you know, I'm gonna avoid religious language like church of the whatever, but like it is the Anthropocene, it is the new epoch in human history that is the humans, um, and it is just about the humans.
Right. Well,
I invoke Ubuntu a ton, but like the
yeah.
language I think that we use here has to be we have to be careful. You know what I mean?
Well, okay, because okay, what's tricky is so if you talk to certain religious people, Catholics, for example, they will deny certain things, um, particularly that most of their traditions are pagan traditions,
Mm, mm,
and yeah,
dang.
well, and there's a lot of value. There's some value in pagan traditions. There's a lot of value in Christian traditions. A lot of value
Of
in
course.
Buddhist traditions and everything else. Um, but what had happened in what would you call it? Indo-Europe or the Greater Europe area, as you had the Middle East kind of merge cultures with Europe, um, and the 2000-ish years ago. Um, you had this merging of philosophies, merging of religions, merging of cultures, and that's a lot of what's been going on now and for the past, I don't know how many hundreds of years or whatever, especially because we've even seen a lot of it in our lifetime because, you know, we've always kind of had a global, everybody influencing everybody around the world. Um, and I think a lot of what we're sort of feeling now is this huge connectivity of all the cultures being, connected. And so they're losing that. They're losing the good things from Buddhism, the good things from Christianity, and the bad things. Uh, but what needs to kind of happen is almost like when you merged paganism and Christianity, and they're like, oh, let's make this work. And then you got this thing of paganity, which really they just called it Catholicism, which Catholicism just means universalism, which is almost like a word that I like, not Catholicism, but universal is almost a better word because it's more about finding our universal um, values. There's going to be some values that um, we definitely want to push peacefully for everyone, especially things along the lines of nonviolence and free speech and things like that. Then there's going to be other values that maybe they're more important to Asian or African cultures and less so to uh, Western cultures, and that's fine. But in that, there's like universal culture or universal values, and it's kind of like what we need to rediscover because right now there's just been this. It's been a materialistic set of values where it's like yes, and that's nothing on science materialism. It's more of the like Kardashians materialism, but it's just like whoever's got the fattest wallet and the biggest fake boobs and the nicest car. Obviously, we can. Most of us know, okay, that's stupid. But even if we're like, okay, the Kardashians are stupid, we sometimes get involved in it. Well, I mean that whole show started Keeping Up with the Kardashians. It's funny to even talk about it. It's a play on what's been in our culture for I don't know how many generations of keeping up with the Joneses, because people used to always say that before the Kardashians. Oh, they're keeping up with the Joneses, which is kind of like a rat race term, which is just saying that like, oh, I've got to get a Mercedes instead of a Honda because the Joneses did, and whatever, and that goes on forever.
Yeah,
Which
that's
is false
all the way
values,
back to like ancient Greece, ancient Rome. Yeah,
right?
like
Which is false values. Which is the other thing is you got to not only understand the right values, but also the values we want to avoid. The false values like materialism, which is tricky because it's not like, oh, we never want to have money, we never want to look nice or anything like that. It's that those are just lower on the value structure. So high on the value structure is going to be, things like peace and free speech and those kind of things. And low on the value structure would be some materialistic things like even money. It's not because it's not like never have money. It's that's just not the most important thing. Which is again back to sort of our point of the day of our culture now is that their belief system is wrapped up in money, and then it's like right now, we'll see how it goes, but that's really what people are worried about is that they're sort of like god of money or whatever. But
yeah,
anyways,
this is a great pivot point because
yeah,
as I was saying, I've never read Jordan's work. I've seen
right.
many talks and debates and stuff that he's done, so I know that he's absolutely brilliant.
Uh-huh.
But I don't jive with him on a whole lot of stuff, but on this I definitely do.
Right.
And I'm coming at this from the Yuval Harari esque angle of like,
Mm.
yes, our culture is literally built on fictions and
Right.
they're useful fictions. And it's everything from the nation state, the nation countries are fictions. The
Corporations, and you all
corporations
know
are
Harari goes
fictions.
goes into that a lot. How
Yes, the
corpus
dollar
is like a
is
body. Yeah.
the dollar is a fiction, and getting in making notes coming up to this because we're invoking the whole order and chaos thing in
Right.
these useful fictions and in how valuable they are in fostering collaboration. We have so on the order end we have something like soccer or football, or I reverse that. It's football most of the world. We call it soccer, but the rules of the game are very clear, and it
Right.
doesn't matter where you are in the world as long as you know how to play soccer. You can play it against anybody. You don't have to speak the same language
Right. Right.
at all. It's just a matter of like there is order to that fiction is very ordered, and it not only fosters collaboration but productive competition too. Competition is very important.
Right.
And then on the end of like I'd say the most ordered version of it on Earth right now is probably the U.S. dollar
Mhm.
in terms of currency, because just about anywhere you go in the world with that single piece of paper, which is just a piece of paper,
Mhm.
because it's this ordered fiction that we all agree a dollar equals a dollar, you can go pretty much anywhere in the world, hand that to somebody, and they will give you something worth a dollar.
Right.
You know what I mean? But this invokes the chaos thing because we are subject to the market. Not only do we depend on that piece of paper to live and survive,
Mhm.
but we're also subject to the market forces. And this
Right.
had reminded me of what's going on in Bolivia with the bolivar. Their currency is just
Oh.
another piece of paper, and right now it's more valuable as like literal just craft paper or note paper. It's not even worth anything because it's subject to the chaos of the system of building a whole society around the piece of paper and then
Right.
not not keeping order to it, not keeping an evolutionary kind of Darwinian process,
Right.
kind of weeding the bullshit out of the gene pool, which is kind of what we need. We kind of
Mhm.
need a little chlorine in the pool,
Right.
um, as eugenicsy as that sounds, I did not mean literally with people. I'm talking about ideas here, people. But I'll let you respond to that because that was the big note that I made in prepping for this because this is I love this topic.
Yeah.
But again, I have no history with Jordan Peterson, so this is
Oh yeah, I mean that's fine.
fascinating.
And with the whole Jordan Peterson thing, it's not so much that we have to have history with him necessarily, because
Mm-mm-mm.
and this is kind of why um, the theme that I got into when I kind of discovered the idea of archetypes, which is that like this is an archetypal thing that we're doing right now, is we're talking about how order and chaos relates to all those things that you just mentioned. So it relates to the dollar, it relates to corporations, it relates to how sports are played, not just football and whatever else, but just about every sport, about every game. And that's how we live our lives, but we don't always, um, we usually take it for granted because um, a lot of the games that we play, we're constantly playing games. Like when you check into a basketball game or a football game or whatever, or soccer game, um, you're in the game. But in life, we don't always realize all the games that we're playing. Like how we're participating in the economy, even by doing nothing, that's part of the economy game, whether that's US dollar related, Bolivia related, or anywhere else. Um, the same thing with the, gene pool thing. I know that's a little more scientific, but however that we go about our lives to potentially get a mate or not, and reproduce or not, and not even if we don't reproduce, however that we help the next generation. I mean, we don't need to reproduce, but even if we never do, we're gonna have some effect on the next generations coming up. Um, Not just how they turn out genetically, but also how they turn out, mentally and everything else. And so those are all games, and those all have a structure, and most of that structure is going on unconsciously. And so that's kind of like the whole squirrel in a nut thing. And there's a bunch of those examples, like, some animals just innately know how to walk right away. There's these turtles. Most turtles, they're born by themselves, like they're just buried in the sand. The moms just leave for them to hatch. And then when the turtles hatch on the beach, like you would think they know nothing because nobody's ever been like, hey, do this, do that. But as soon as these turtles crawl out of the sand or whatever, they know to start running to get in the water. And in fact, they really have to, because um, most of these predatory birds um, are waiting to pick them off. So if
Yeah, they evolved the same thing. Like, oh, it's
right,
feeding time. Yeah, it's very much that
right,
competition thing.
right. So
And
if they
it's
don't do it, then they die. Yeah.
a good flag here is that this is an area that this is a way that humans are different because yes, if you look especially like a lot of the Jesus, horrible live streams. A
Yeah.
lot of the larger animals like uh, the baby will just plop right out, land on its feet, and start running. But humans are
Right.
not like that. We are helpless for the first however many years of our lives.
Yep.
And this gets back to the whole like if we're gonna foster anything, it should be the things that are already there that we all know they're there.
Or
But
we
as
don't know, but they're still there, whether we know it
well,
or
we
not.
need to be reminded. Yes.
Yeah.
And actually, one of the themes that came up was the Hall of the Universe. It was like when you were talking about the universality of it all. I was like,
Right.
maybe
Right.
maybe I'll call it the Hall of the Universe, to kind of borrow from Cosmos a little bit. I kind of like Hall of the Universe,
Okay.
uh, but you made another important point about like whether or not we're spreading our genes into the gene pool. We are definitely spreading our memes into the meme pool.
Yeah, definitely.
In terms of
Not
like that's
just
how culture evolves. Culture
right,
evolves off of memes, and it's tying a nice big loop back to the beginning
right,
about games. Is
right,
that
right.
like the games only work when they have rules and everybody understands the same rules? You know, which is why I like that Jordan Peterson had invoked this idea of like if for order to work, there needs to be rules, and that doesn't have to be this authoritarian kind of ancient Roman, you know, crucify that motherfucker for not following the rules. It doesn't have to be one of those, or it doesn't even have to be as cruel as evolution to just like, you know, we're not going to reproduce that because it's garbage.
Right.
Which really isn't cruel. That's kind of neutral if I'm putting that
Mhm.
on a scale. But yeah, man. See, I'm like already too many places to go. Too many places
Yeah,
to go.
yeah,
This
yeah.
is why long form is like the only way this is ever going to happen, and it has to be unpacked in like a huge series. Like we're I'm not an author, but like this is how authors build their books. They spend months and
Yeah,
months and months and months getting their ideas out, and we're kind of doing the same thing, just in a different format. And it's raw. It's just kind of
yeah.
all out there, evolving in real time. So
And
I
actually,
love it.
that's how I sort of started down some of this. I don't know whatever you'd call it path of reading, maybe um, reading a lot and also putting together thoughts, putting together Facebook groups, interacting. Uh, it's because when I kind of started, I was kind of like, okay, maybe I just need to read, this handful of books and then back to life. Uh, but then what I found is every author or in every book, there's, including Jordan Peterson, it's there's going to be parts, and Noah Yuval Harari, he's really good at sort of challenging the reader, but there's going to be parts where you're like, screw that, I've got a better idea, So a lot of this is kind of like, okay, I gotta now I've got to read dozens of books to put together my better ideas, and that's really what I think we're supposed to do. Maybe not necessarily all the time, but at least at certain points in our life and certain points of our history. Right now is one of these big points in history where hopefully we'll look back at it and, um, I mentioned earlier, it's just like I really hope we'll look back at it and be like, wow, we learned a lot from that. It's like even like you look back at all the horrible things that happened in World War II, which are there's no way that you can say it's good that all those people died and everything else, Hiroshima and everything else. That's horrible. But once
It
something,
also,
yeah,
I just I like I had Alan Turing is like the
yeah,
was that World War One or World War Two? I think that
two.
was one, wasn't it? Was it one
I'm
or
not
two?
sure now. Anyway, one of
Alan
them.
Turing Enigma Code is two, but that's it. It's like the darkest thing produced, the thing that enabled us to do what we're doing right now,
Right, right,
modern computers.
right.
Sorry to interrupt you. This is just like
Oh no, it's fine. Feel free to interrupt me in my
exploded up.
tangent. Um, no, but like so now it's like you look at those who the United States defeated in World War II. Not that that's any glory on our part necessarily. And I don't even know if you want to call it the United States, you'd maybe call it the West beat those who tried to come up with their authoritarian type regimes of course, Germany and Japan in particular. Well, what's really interesting is you look at Germany, Japan, and then right after or shortly after World War II, what happened in the Korean War. And then it's like Germany, Japan, at least up until recently, because we had a close alliance with them after that, they were good losers, so to speak. They have had, they've become some of the most successful countries in the world since then. And then Korea is interesting because the huge contrast where we're, in the 60s or whatever, we're like, okay, we're going to quit getting out of so many foreign entanglements. And so we left Korea but we left it with that, whatever it is, 48th parallel or whatever, with the dividing line. And so now you can see it's like North Korea is in the dark and have horrible lives, but South Korea is basically like here.
Literally, you
Yeah,
can literally see it from space, you
yeah,
guys. You can literally see it from space.
yeah.
It is like, yeah, that's fucking great, man. Um, and in the invoking the like who really won World War II, it was the ideas. The good
Right,
ideas won over the bad ideas.
right,
And we had to use violence to achieve that goal. When it was on that large a scale, but like now, especially with how interconnected we are and how
right.
individually empowered we are by platforms like this, and by the ideas
Mhm.
of those that came before us. Like if we have seen further, if I've seen further, it's because I stand on the shoulder of giants.
Right.
Isaac Newton. So it's great to say that, yes, like Yuval and Jordan and Sam Harris and all the people who have inspired us kind of collectively, who are coming into common spaces to talk about these kinds of things.
Right.
Andrew Yang is another great one, because it's like he had a bunch of really great ideas. I want to stand on his shoulders and build on top of them. I want to go further. I want to build more and do better, because I'm like,
Right.
that is the drive. That is the human drive to do better.
Mhm.
We have to push for that. That this is pushing humanity forward, because that's our only option
Mhm.
if we want to survive. It's not only forward, it's also up. We need to expand. We need to
Right.
go into space. We need to work together as a planet. And really, that it you know we've known this in science fiction for a long time, that like what it was going to take to do that was going to be a common enemy. Was going to be an alien invader. Okay, we needed
Yeah, even
the
Nixon said
little
that.
green men.
Yeah.
So coronavirus right now is the little green men
Yeah.
invading Earth, and it's actually bringing us together collectively as a species in a really beautiful way. We kind of do need a common enemy sometimes,
Yeah.
and let's just take a moment to show gratitude and be thankful that this one isn't way worse.
Right. Right. Right.
It's
Yeah.
bad, you guys,
It's
but
bad, but it could be a lot worse for sure.
usually, like way back when we didn't have these annoying protocols that are, like social distancing and closing things down, when we didn't have those
Right.
protocols, they were plagues. They would wipe out half the population, like
Yeah.
that. Like we're better off than anybody else, any other civilization or society in human history. We are better prepared now. We are better off. I'm kind of invoking Pinker's work, even though I haven't read Pinker, but I know this is very much like the Enlightenment now kind of, like, yes, as fucked up as it seems, like, you would not want to go back in a time machine, because every other point in human history was just
Oh yeah.
misery compared to where we are at right now. So it's
We
important to
are.
reflect on that a
That's
little bit.
what I do love about this, and just what we can see in history. You know, I don't. Well, I don't like sometimes how people are like, "Oh, we're a virus on the earth," or people who don't like humanity, I guess. But what I do love about history is that's where you can really watch an evolution. I'm not an evolution denier as far as the biology for it, but it's a lot harder to observe, because uh, theoretically, as far as we know, it happened over millions and billions of years, whereas we have seen immense progress in our intellectual, psychological, philosophical mind and being and what we are, just over, well, constantly, but especially over the known history of the past few thousand years since we've had writing and everything. Um, so yeah, this is all part of that endless thing of just building more and more better things that we are.
Yes. Good ideas, and you have to challenge the good ideas with or challenge the bad ideas with the good ideas. And you just invoked something really cute, and I'm going to bring it up because this is not a philosophy that a lot of
Okay.
people are aware of. But you talked about
Bring on the cuteness.
you just brought up this idea of like, yes, there are some people who are like, no, humans are a virus on the
Oh yeah,
earth, and it's just
that's
like
cute.
this is antinatalism is a
Mhm.
fucking fascinating philosophy. It is.
Yeah.
I'll just read the description here. Is a philosophical position and social movement that assigns a negative value to birth.
Ugh.
Antinatalists argue that people should abstain from procreation because it's morally bad. Some also recognize the procreation of other sentient beings as morally bad. So this is an example of a philosophy in the war of ideas that's like, okay, clearly
Yeah.
if your stance is like procreation is bad, that
You're wrong.
you are an extinction fetishist.
Yeah.
Okay, like that's what you're advocating. There are much
I
better
mean,
ways.
just like we were
Like
talking about the other
population
day.
control is a great place to
Yeah.
invoke this as well. I'm gonna let you
I'm all
respond.
for free, peaceful speech. So sure, bring out the horrible ideas
Yeah,
and let people say them, and we'll say why they're horrible. But
I will tell you just how stupid that idea is.
yeah,
That is the power of
pretty
free
horrible
speech.
idea. Um, but,
Oh man.
but that's the great thing about ideas. There's this huge spectrum of, uh, you know, do I want to get water or toilet paper or dog food? And sometimes that's trivial and sometimes it's not. Up to like, should we stop people from procreating? And there's some people who take that philosophy halfway to the extreme. Um,
China's one child policy. That
yeah,
the parallel to China and the fact that we started this by talking about coronavirus, it was
right,
totally coincidental, people. I wasn't being a
right,
racist shithead, but like I was just about to go into this whole population control ethics
right.
because that's a fascinating area of conversation as well.
Yeah, and I don't know all the science behind it, but some of what I've heard, I know Jordan Peterson has mentioned it, but what a lot of scientists that I've heard over the years are um, uh, whatever that they are estimating is sometime in the next 50 to 80 years, we will plateau between 9 and 10 billion
Yep.
human beings, and somehow we're just going to be able to sustain that. And that makes sense because there will be things like as horrible as coronavirus is. There will be those. There will be things like as horrible as war is. There will be those. There will be those kind of things, but then there will also be uh, getting birth control out. There will be the world is constantly changing, but yeah, we will plateau sometime in this century at 9 to 10 billion, and for the most part, sustain that.
Yeah, I love invoking this as well, because this is exactly where it was going to go. In the population question, because
Yeah,
you like we saw a bad idea in World War II as to like how to keep the people down, how to like improve
yeah,
the gene pool. Very very bad ideas on the table there. We're very we should be thanking very thankful that the good ideas won there.
right,
But population control ethics are fascinating, and this is the figure that I tend to put out too, is like we are going to plateau around 10 billion, and that is simply because that like we're not just talking about removing people. Like there are two things there. There's the birth rate and the death rate.
right,
So
right,
like our population's going up because we're having more babies than people are dying, which is morally neutral. It's like arguably a good thing that there are more people.
right,
But the thing that's actually going to solve this is standard of living. It's education. It's sanitation. It's contraception. It's the empowerment and
right.
liberation of women. Because when we do that, they have smaller families,
Mhm.
stronger families. Um, the elimination of poverty. So much
Right,
of our overpopulation problem is just due to poverty alone. which people don't like to think about. It's kind of an ugly thought to have. But
And getting more pornography in the world. Not,
all of
well,
it,
okay, I'm not
man,
necessarily
all of it.
pushing pornography, but I will push entertainment and the internet. Okay, because
Yeah.
I grew up in the Midwest, and as soon as I could, I'm like, wait a second, I don't need to live here all the time, and I could just see this family at the holidays. Bye. And then I just got on a bus and I came out to California like 17 years ago. I still visit for the holidays and everything, but a lot of the people that I grew up with, they didn't take that leap of faith, so to speak. And especially because that was back in, the early 2000s when there wasn't as much entertainment and internet and everyone totally connected like they are now. And so people would just get bored and have babies. And that's really how we would go and how we've been up until really this generation. Like I'm on that borderline between millennial and Gen X. So I'm like sort of like a harbinger of the millennials in that if we can stay entertained, then we don't need to. Because it's one thing to get bored and have recreational intercourse, but there are a lot of people that are bored enough to recreationally make children. And
Do you have kids?
no, just the puppy.
Good for you, man. Cheers,
Yeah,
motherfucker. Me neither. I'm 33. A bunch of my like pretty much all my friends from high school all have kids, and I'm like, how the
yeah,
hell do you do that? Jesus Christ.
yeah. I'm not completely opposed to it, but
Mm.
um, I don't know. I feel
It
like
would be a
there's
beautiful
not.
thing to do, man. It would be a beautiful
Yeah,
thing to do, but you need the stability and the structure there for like
yeah,
my bank account needs to have two commas in it before I'm going to think about
right.
having a kid, which I'm going to have to engineer one in like a lab, so it's a whole other thing. So that's like a
Make,
slightly different.
make a robot baby.
Um. Oh well, no,
Or a
because
computer program baby.
I am what society refers to as a homosexual. So I don't have this.
Oh yeah.
I don't even
Wow.
have that like opportunity to accidentally have kids. Like that has to be a very deliberative process for
Okay, okay.
me. So
Yeah. They've been doing a lot of interesting things with genetic uh, engineering and writing.
oh my God, I just thought about this the other day. We have ways to have three parent babies now. This was something that
Oh
I
yeah, the
forget exactly what.
mitochondria
Yeah, the
DNA injection.
mitochondrial. Yeah, see, those fucking nerds. But
Nerd.
there's nerds.
Hmm.
No, but apparently there's a way to combine two sperm cells without an egg, like without a female progenitor, with like that.
Oh
Apparently
yeah,
that's
two.
possible, which is going to drive fundamentalist Christians up the goddamn wall. Two daddy babies with no mommy. That is going to seriously challenge
Well,
our
but
culture,
so
probably the
they
Muslim
have an
world too, I would
egg. So
imagine.
there's where's the egg come from?
This is what I was kind of like. Okay, I think it's like a blank egg.
A blank egg.
I think it might be something approximating like the Jurassic Park thing with the frog
Okay.
eggs. Like I'm not 100% sure that I remember this from like maybe a couple of years ago. But yeah, those are the kind of fascinating kind of moral questions that are going to come
Yeah.
into existence with the rise of automation and artificial intelligence and
Yeah.
bioengineering, like genetics and fucking like the we are the kids growing up now are going to be growing up in a very different world
Oh
than we
yeah.
grew up
I
in,
can't
man.
even imagine.
I I'm I'm ecstatic. I just hope I'm here long enough to get downloaded into a sexy new robot body so that I can hang out and watch all this unfold. Because like
Yeah.
my normal expected human lifespan is not going to get me to the parts where I'm like, oh, I need to see that. I need to,
Yeah.
I need to be around for
Although,
the first
do
fucking
you think
starship, man.
this is a tangent that's fine, but some people say, and Noah or Yuval Noah Harari goes in this in some of his later books, but we may be able to at some point not necessarily even need or want robot bodies, but just put our consciousness onto computers.
Oh yeah. Like
Does that
quantum
make sense
computing, like
though? Does that
oh
make
my god,
sense?
like yeah, when we get into quantum computing
Yeah,
and like because everything that we're doing right now, which seems like magic, it
yeah.
is just happening on a meat computer inside of our head. It's all code. So once we figure that out, um on the quantum level, once we understand it on the quantum level, and we can transfer that to another medium, maybe
Hmm.
like a crystal based medium or something that doesn't degrade, that's going to last for 1 billion years.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is going to invoke a whole bunch of like, is it really you? It's the
Right,
Star
right,
Trek
right.
teleporter thing. It's like if they break you down to your individual molecules and then
Yeah.
reassemble you on the other side, is it really you, or did you the original you die and they made a new you? It's like a
Right, right, right.
whole it's a whole thing. But like, yeah, I think the evolution of consciousness will, I think if we like, and this is getting kind of crazy, I think if we
Mm.
ever in meet some kind of alien visitor from another world, it's probably going to be digital. It's probably going to be some digital consciousness that like exists on something, like there's probably
Dude.
no bodies, corporeal
Mm.
forms involved, which is goddamn. This is nuts. It's a great tangent, man.
Yeah, I like this tangent. And actually, I'd have to look because this person didn't go and accept the StreamYard. Maybe we'll do Zoom in the future. But
Chandler had a really funny comment too. It was shit posty. I liked it
yeah, yeah,
when I was talking about evolution.
yeah. Anyway,
Ugh.
this okay. This person is right. This Facebook user, although we're getting into a lot of theory because, in other words, if you put your consciousness into a computer, so to speak, or into some kind of a
Right.
computer program, basically you would have to then you're not just going to be like, okay, you're in a dreamlike consciousness that can go anywhere and everywhere in this universe program that you're in, whatever that might be, or all the computers in the world that are connected. uh, you'd have to have some kind of a limiting body. It's which is interesting in the whole gaming thing because it kind of makes sense that we would at least have the limiting avatar kind of thing, like where
Yeah.
in the gaming world that we have, um you almost feel like, oh, I should be able to like teleport all over my gaming universe, but it makes it a better story and more like real consciousness the more limits you put on
Yeah. You
being,
have to.
being in an artificial body.
Oh, I love this because I just invoked this in a video game episode a video game philosophy episode that I had the other day around the physics of the video games. Because all lots of different video games, they have very different physics. Like gravity
Right,
doesn't
right,
work like that, but like once you kind of master that, you become a fucking superhero. But
right.
it is about the inputs. I'm going to push back slightly on Facebook user here
Facebook.
because yes, Facebook user, because it is an input thing, like and maybe a brain in a vat would be a better, instead of just downloading into
Oh yeah. Oh, that's BJ
onto
Carpenter,
a
by the
hard
way.
drive. Oh, that's BJ, man. What's
Yeah.
up? I love it.
Yo,
I
hey, if you want to get in here, I can send you the link.
Oh, absolutely. I'm all about it because now we're into consciousness and brains and vats.
Oh
Because
yeah,
like
yeah.
I think the brains and vats is actually more realistic because we just
Yeah.
have inputs. We have like our visual cortex, our
That
auditory
actually makes
cortex.
that
Our
makes the most
we
sense to me.
Yeah, we can simulate all of that. We can trigger that to make it feel like you're feel like, and this gets more into like the Matrix realm. So like
Right,
we're probably in terms of extending our consciousness beyond our physical forms, we're probably looking at something more like, actually we're probably looking at something more like Futurama heads in jars. I think we actually kind of are, because it's like everything that we're talking about is up here. If we can
right.
find a way to sustain the brain with
Yeah,
nanites or something that are just like constantly going in and repairing neural connections,
I'm with
and
you.
then that can live and experience in a completely digital world that you'd never
Right.
even know. It would just be the Matrix, and you'd just be a brain in a jar. I love that.
Yeah.
I would sign up to be the brain in the jar on fucking day one, man.
Right.
Just put me on a really like solid hard like just make sure whatever system that is. I don't want to be first. It's kind of like that. Like, do you want to go to Mars? I'm like, yes. On the first trip, maybe. I don't want to die on Mars.
Yeah.
I want to be able to come back. So,
Oh, you do? Okay. You're not gonna move there.
I probably would move to Mars if I got an email from NASA tomorrow that was like, hey, we really like your podcast.
Yeah.
We really need to make
Come
sure that
on
all these
now.
people on Mars are entertained. So we're gonna send you. Do you want to go? I would be
Yeah.
like, yeah. Bye, Earth. Peace.
Bye.
See you. You know, but I love Earth. I really do. Mars is actually pretty shitty. I probably wouldn't want to live there. I'd probably rather live on
Yeah.
Venus, actually. Above Venus, rather, not on it. 'cause
Although
it's not a thing.
this is what, although Mars, maybe even lunar colonies, makes sense as far as places to put the jar cases. In other words, we don't need to run around and like go to the ocean. It would be nice, but
I would say lava tubes. Lava tubes would, I think, is the answer there. If we're talking about a safe place to put that, where we're gonna safe from asteroid impacts and radiation, deep underground lava tubes. Mars has got lots of them. The moon's got some. It's great. We just solved it. We just solved it, man. We have
there we go. We did it.
we have our new plan. We have our new mission to save humanity. We are going to build the brains in jars machine, and we're going to put it in lava tubes. Brains in jars and lava tubes, motherfuckers.
That's what we learned. And guess what? No coronavirus can get us when we're in a lava tube.
Yeah, exactly.
No nuclear war, as long as they don't know where to detonate the lava tubes. No existential crisis, or maybe that is the only problem. Okay, well, anyway, we eliminate some of the problems, at least.
Oh yeah,
coronavirus,
food, water, all of that, pathogens, whatever. Because we could exist in a digital world and have the best meal we've ever eaten every single day, and still look and feel like the youngest, sexiest things we've ever been, and never have to actually eat. And we can fuck in there, and we could do every, if we're going all the way there, where we're just like, okay, there is a full brain to computer interface that exists, and there's some kind of nanite system that like keeps your brain sustained, some kind of like, oh fuck, I'll take it to powdered opalescence or whatever it was in Futurama that like made that magical thing possible. Crystalline opal. we got to find it, man. We got to find the fucking crystalline opal. What's like if you get brain cancer? Well, Chandler, that's why I'm saying that like we need nanorobotics on this scale. I think developing them for use inside the body first to attack cancer cells and things like that. I think that like hardcore into like nanites. We need nanites immediately. So why are we not investing in this? It's like stem cell research. Why? Like, come on, where are my fucking nanites? God, this got so off. It's not even off topic, man. It's not.
Everything's
really
on the topic. Like, everything's on the table.
It's the beautiful wormholes in the universe that all kind of tie back and lead to each other.
Wormholes. Yeah.
I was gonna say rabbit holes,
but
I like
a wormhole. Space. Then we wouldn't be limited to. Well, that's basically what happened on Interstellar, right? They opened 5 wormholes, and they went to go check them out for which one would be most habitable. But
I don't know. I had trouble following the physics.
Yeah,
in that movie because they took too many artistic liberties with the story.
Yeah,
it didn't really track like on an astrophysical, quantum mechanical, Einstein-Rosen bridge kind of level. But this is. I meant metaphorical wormholes because I was going to say rabbit holes, but wormhole felt more appropriate. I'm feeling very university. Yeah. Feeling very university. I like Hall of the Universe, man. What do you think about that? Is that too lofty?
You mean for like a new
for my secular Sunday morning church thing that I'm going to do as an atheist?
Yeah, I like it.
um,
Although
I want
I
to
feel
like
like a lot of
the
the
humanity
goal.
part needs to be
Well, I feel
focused, I
like
think.
a lot of the goal is to find something. Okay, like I mentioned earlier, this is a little bit getting back on stuff, but um, hmm. So like when the pagans came together with the Christians, like almost 2,000 years ago, whatever. Anyway, they merged their religions, and then they were just like, deal with it. You know, they never like
Mhm.
sat anybody around and wrote them a book and said like, here's how we're merging the paganism and the Christianity and other stuff. They're just like, we're doing it, deal with it. And that's why that now you have um like Mary's in the Bible, but she's not a deity, and the Trinity is nowhere in the Bible. It's part of pagan Trinity, and there's the Christmas tree,
Oh yeah.
several other things. They are pagan traditions that they just squished into Christian form. Anyway, so now we're getting to the point where, and I only say that because you're like my atheist hall of the universe, because I think that the goal is this kind
I
of
was
thing
gonna
is
stick with
happening,
secular. I feel like secular
or
is a little
yeah,
nicer.
secular. But because the idea is that everybody can come together. We can be like, hey, I am whatever. Even if you want to still say I'm Christian, I'm Buddhist, I'm atheist, I'm secular, I'm whatever. But we have a universal code of ethics as human beings.
Yeah. And it's actually
And, yeah,
amalgamations of lots of different things. And like the creation of Christmas is actually a good one because it wasn't like it wasn't like an enforced like this is the thing now. It's just like, well, here's a new holiday that we're celebrating here. So obviously they're going to bring their evergreen boughs and their Yule
yeah. Well, what
logs
it
and
was
all of
is
their
the
family traditions with them to
yeah.
just do this new thing that everybody's doing. So it's kind of like
Well, so basically, it
little
was
bits of that.
in Europe. They had their pagan traditions for God only knows how long, thousands of years BC, or at least a thousand ish
Oh,
years.
oh yeah.
Well,
Because it goes
actually,
back into
it's yeah, it's
celebrations of
at
the
least 10,000
equinox
years.
and yeah,
Uh, so
it's an astronomical thing.
and
So thousands
but
and
the
thousands.
Christian philosophy slash spirit slash whatever you want to call it was kind of like overthrowing it and taking over. So instead, they're just like, pagan stuff, keep being that, but we're just gonna call it Christianity now. Okay. And
I
then
think that process took a long time
it
because
did at
you
least
know,
for
the
200 years.
earlier church was a lot more intolerant of things. Even like the Christmas tree. Actually, in the Bible, there's a fascinating. I love busting this out
Oh yeah.
every year to my evangelical Christians who are getting upset about coffee cups. There's there's this great fucking verse in the Bible where they talk about like don't be like the heathens, don't go to the forest and cut down the evergreen
Right.
tree and nail
Right.
it down and deck it with silver and gold. This is debaucherous and evil. It's
Yeah.
just like yeah, it's fucking great. God, the story of Christmas is so beautiful. We're gonna have to do a Christmas special, man. How great would
I
that
would like
be?
to. I thought if I had kids, if I had kids, not because of a Christian or non-Christian thing, but I thought what would be cool is to have a giant wreath, like we put the wreaths on the door, only
Mhm.
because there's sort of like this universal symbolism of like the circle that is
Yeah.
the soul slash psyche slash circle of life and everything else that goes throughout every culture on some level, East and West and everything else. So yeah, I feel like maybe in our Hall of the Universe philosophy, there's going to be giant wreaths rather than Christmas trees.
I like it. Although this is fucking weird, man. This is weird because conceptually I was trying to design some kind of logo, invoking kind of geometry and symbolism and things. I was trying to
Oh yeah,
come
I've
up with
done that.
something to symbolize the universe. And the thing that I actually came up with is a small circle, and it's inside of a three-pointed triangle that's shaped more
Mhm.
like an arrowhead, and then there's a bigger circle around it, which is that's weird. That's very, very weird.
Oh yeah. Then that gets into uh,
Each point of the triangle has its own circle too. Looks
although
like this
what I
alien spaceship
what I
thing.
would think along those lines that is similar, but uh, makes what works more, not just for anyway, the quaternity, which is this the square and the circle and the square and the circle, or
Oh, right, right.
the circle divided into four. But and you can do that either just as a circle divided into four, or you can do it four, like four squares with a circle in it. But oh, because then there's also the it sort of has three triangles too. They might be rounded triangles or might not, but how they come together can be triangular.
Mm.
But we can work on that another day.
Right. The symbolism in geometry is a really fascinating one because you have to be careful in terms of what kinds of things you invoke. Like
Right.
anything resembling an iron cross, I would be kind of like, ooh, maybe not. And even the arrowhead for me felt a little like, man, that might be a little masculine, but it's kind of pointing up, and
Uh,
the tip of it, is kind of it's like it's more like the tip of a spear, but it's like this all kind of compassed thing. So there's a directionality to it. But yeah, I mean, anytime you're invoking anything, the symbolism it likely already has
right.
so many iterations. The swastika is a great example of this because that was an existing symbol
Right.
um, that was very peaceful until the Nazis took it over. And actually, I think, is it in Japan
Mhm.
now? I think it's actually still a very popular symbol that's like, oh, swastika. They have no idea. They have no idea. Not that was racist. I'm sorry. It was
Sorry, I made it
drunk. It
more
wasn't. It
racist.
wasn't intentionally. But
We love
that's what I'm saying.
Japan.
Like, I remember seeing this YouTube video of like somebody going around. I think it was Japan and asking people about the symbol because they have it on T-shirts and they're just like, "Ah, it's great." And they're like, "Do you know what that is?" And then they're like, and they're like, "Do you know Hitler, World War II?" And they're like, "Oh yeah," like, and I'm like, "That's it," and they go, "Oh," like, so it's one
Mm.
of the it's
Well,
one of those things,
it is the it's a
Oh
sun
God,
symbol. It's a sun symbol.
it's I see. I had a fucking flag because I was just reminded of Carl Sagan's book Comet.
Mhm.
Did he write that with Ian? I think he wrote that with Andrew Ian. The book Comet is actually the spiraling the ancient symbology. If you go all the way back, it's like the swastika that we understand is a four spiral. It's a four-armed spiral, and it's taken kind of into sharp edges into a lot of Aztec culture and ancient Indian culture, and all those is sharp lines. But it goes back. If you look back way, like going back and back and back and back, it's actually the images of a comet, of a tumbling comet with these streams of gas and dust coming off of them is where the original symbology of that thing
Um,
actually comes from. So it's a four tentacled kind of like
yeah,
rotating comet in space.
I don't know if
Um,
you want to get on.
hmm.
Well, so it's just that
Love me
the
some Sagan.
the whole original thing, and Chandler even mentioned something about Thailand. It's hard to figure out what. Well, it's just like you have
Maybe
in
not
history.
original, oldest,
Well, yeah,
oldest.
that might be the way to think of it. But it's because what's weird is you see a lot of these things in history where people would start doing the same things at the same time, even though they couldn't communicate to each other. And so what that is just over time, certain things just pour out of the human mind, and some of that might be the certain symbolism, which would include those that we talk about. Anyway.
That was a fascinating diversion. It really kind of was, and it started to invoke all kinds of
Oh,
cool
yeah.
things.
And then what
You
he's
know,
talking, and then um, I don't know if we want to get into that too.
Kind of
Male and
sacred,
female. Well,
sacred
male and
masculine,
female.
sacred feminine kind of
Well,
thing. That's a little. I mean,
and this is the
no.
tricky thing. Okay, and it's kind of the logos arrows principle. And I made some posts about this that I might repost or something. Which is similar to the yin yang idea. And sometimes that's what we can say is like OMG, whether we think that was somehow something nature came up with out of our psyche slash unconscious or some self-destructive thing. When we do certain wars, when we do certain, they're calling this coronavirus possibly a man-made virus or one of the first things that are like a man-made virus. And there's been a lot of theories that go with that.
Nope, they're
Okay.
wrong.
Okay,
It's not
wrong.
man-made. Scientifically, there's no backing to that. People are saying that. Yes, it's total bullshit.
Okay.
So important flag, science guy.
Sure. But okay, but there's always this idea that it's almost like the metaphorical Tower of Babel idea, which is man, humanity will say builds up these structures, whether we want to call them mental structures or just our own progress, and then after we get to a certain peak or certain level, and usually it's when we're being a little out of whack materialistically or we've lost our moral foundation, then something in nature will often, sort of what's happening right now in history with COVID-19, is nature will be like, wham. And that's not saying God is like having, raining down fire and brimstone, but sometimes, and you could just call it synchronicity or coincidence, and that sometimes we need to reevaluate our values, which is kind of a lot of the whole point of this, is that we will build up our whole thing, and we see it in the individual level too. It's like if one individual has too much success, sometimes they're good. That was the whole thing of the Stoic philosophy of you could see Marcus Aurelius was the richest person in history in a way, and he was very moral. And on the other hand, you had with the same philosophy Epictetus, the slave, who said he's happy in his slave life or poor person life because of the philosophy that he had. And so sometimes if you have a good philosophy, which is kind of what we're talking about, then if you can maintain that, then it doesn't need to knock you out. But it does happen on the individual level too, where if you have a person, an individual who's like gets too egotistical, we'll say, then oftentimes their life will make them reset. It's happened to me a couple times, and then got to reevaluate values and evaluate not just values, but the way that we live. And that happens individually, and it also happens in the whole society. And now it's trickier, especially with this virus we're talking about, because this, other than some of the economic things and the world wars, this is kind of like the first thing that we've dealt with on such a global scale, and that's what's really tough about it, especially when you have like, and I'm not going to put down any political person necessarily, but you have some political people like the president, like putting down China, and some of that is justified because they weren't as transparent and forthcoming about their data as quickly as they should have been. And if they were, we probably could have prevented a lot of this. And then what sucks though is you get China responding in this sort of rhetoric war of like, oh no, even like journalists in Hong Kong are doing the same thing. Like, you guys are gonna suffer because you're not prepared for this, and you will only kind of be prepared because of what happened in Asia. And it's like, okay, guys, let's just come together and beat this stupid freaking virus or whatever.
Before we get too far off point,
Okay.
I have a screaming flag because you brought up
Sure.
the Tower of Babel. I have an even better one.
Okay.
because immediately what it reminded me of
It's the
is
archetypal idea. Go ahead.
the Library of Alexandria. And sometimes the forces of nature that
Mhm.
are coming to try and destroy it is us. You know, if you look at it, at the burning of the Library of Alexandria, I think was actually an accident.
Mm.
Um, in the Roman siege, I think that was under Caesar, but like we lost that. That was the center of human knowledge. It was like
Right.
the golden pinnacle, and if from what we lost from there is heart like existentially heartbreaking for me to think of the things that we lost at
Right.
the Library of Alexandria, because everything that our society is built off of is from the ashes, just from the tiny little fragments that we were able to salvage from
Mhm.
that. And it took us, look how long it took society to come back, to bounce back from that, for the forest to regrow, you know, kind of, so
Right.
to speak. It really was like until the Renaissance, until that started to happen again.
Mm.
But the same thing that's kind of like makes this time different and so crazy and so hectic is because we're going to heal like it that much faster in the same way. We're not going to have to wait, you know, like it's going to take a long time to kind of recover from this, but it's not going to take 1,000 years. And every other time in history where
Well,
we've had one of these kind
yeah.
of moments,
Hopefully,
you
if
know,
we
well,
don't have too many like, okay, Carl Jung, he made. In fact, I was starting to watch that video.
the Enlightenment. Thank you, Chandler.
But Carl Jung, he was in that interview. He has a famous quote. I think we need to remember often, and he clarifies that uh, the psyche hangs on like a thin thread, and but that's not just the psyche hanging on a thin thread. That's life as we know it. Or I might have that a little bit wrong. I'd have to double check. But basically, all of life, it's like dangling on a thin thread, which is the psyche, because we don't know what could make us lose our minds, whether that's toilet paper people or that is our president or Vladimir Putin, you know, has a breakdown and then starts launching nukes or whatever the case, and then there's no more people, and hopefully the cockroach ancestors figure out how to like work our hard drives to rediscover our history. Who knows?
I think it'll be the
Uh,
tardigrades. I'm pretty sure it'll be the tardigrades.
what are the tardigrades?
Oh
I'm
my god.
unfamiliar.
Tardigrades are amazing. Tardigrades are the coolest animal, man. Water bears.
Oh,
There's like we are the
okay.
planet of the fucking tardigrades for sure. There's trillions and trillions and trillions of them. Itty bitty little adorable little bears. Man, they're fucking everywhere. And they're like
Oh, okay.
indestructible. You can put them in the vacuum of space. You can freeze them. You can boil them. You can blast them with radiation, and they're like indestructible.
All right.
Fucking tardigrades, man. I would love to go hang out with some tardigrades. Ask them
Yeah.
what their lives are like, man. Like in a
What
single drop
tardigrade?
of water, there's like a colony of 1 billion of them or something insane. I forget.
Okay.
Love me some tardigrades.
All right. Sure. The tardigrade universe.
Yeah, yeah,
That's what
yeah.
we'll call it.
Planet of the tardigrades.
The
My
tardigrade.
horrible Carl Sagan impression did not
Oh yeah.
work. It's fine.
Yeah. I'm not good.
Oh god.
Sometimes I can get into impressions, but I haven't.
Oh man. I need to do more. I need to do
Not
more.
Carl Sagan.
I'm working on my Carl Sagan.
Working on Carl Sagan.
Billions.
Billions of universes in a single pinhead of a water drop.
Yeah. Oh man. It's horrible. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. 'Cause it's in the middle of. I'm looking at the comment on the screen, and it's
Oh, I don't even know what that means. I just put it up there. Caligula.
I'm in the middle of the
Caligula.
Caligula. I don't know.
Maybe
That's
BJ can mention that as he feeds his little baby
Alexandria
human.
fragments all hoarded in the Vatican. Storm the Vatican. They
Vatican
can't.
conspiracy.
It's Area 51, man. They can't storm us all, or just can't stop us all. Let's storm the fuck in there.
Let's storm the Vatican.
We're gonna storm the Vatican. We're gonna steal the fragments from the Library of Alexandria, and put them in our new Hall of the Universe, which hopefully we'll get Andrew and Neil deGrasse Tyson and Jordan Peterson and Yuval Noah Harari to help us build out in the middle of the desert. Build it out of like carbon nanotubes and solar panels or something. I don't know.
Sure. What kills those little bears? What are they called?
Tardigrades.
What kills the tardigrades?
I don't know, man.
Come on, Chandler.
I think it's really, really hard to kill a tardigrade. Because, like, literally, vacuum of space, you can dry them out and they just dehydrate into just, like,
kill those tardigrades. You think they're better than me.
Add water and they come back to life. Kind of like sea monkeys, I think. You could just dry them out and just chuck them in a thing and add some water 1,000 years later and they'll just, hey, I'm back. What's up?
I am back.
Yeah.
Life is so weird.
Life is fucking fascinating. Man, I need to do a whole series on the Tree of Life. That's been on my to-do list since I like started the show. Is like I need to do a whole series about evolution and just like the weird ass fucking animals that are on this planet. Plants and animals, insects, fungi, whatever that other category is.
Get eaten very easily.
Well, it's micro animals. I love
like the
micro animals.
It's like the mosquito. The mosquito, their answer to evolution is to make 1 million mosquitoes. You know, because most of them die before they can reproduce. And I guess that's what tardigrades do also. They make a lot of tardigrades, and then what are we talking about?
I'm gonna look it up. How many tardigrades are there on Earth?
Tardigrades, those little. I'm just mad because they're going to take over the planet one day.
It's a broad category. There's actually 1,000 different described species of them. God damn. That is not an easy answer.
Chandler, you're supposed to know. Chandler.
I know, Chandler. Why don't you know how many tardigrades there are on Earth?
You freaking idiot.
That's just.
That's supposed to be your expertise.
Like how we actually probably have a better estimate,
Chandler, because you're supposed to know all about the tardigrades.
We actually have probably have a better estimate for like how many grains of sand on Earth there are.
Yeah,
probably a better estimate. There's a shit ton of tardigrades, man. Like it's ridiculous. Like the population of the Earth in humans, like in a single drop of water. It's insane.
Oh, so that would be
not that extreme.
Some number that we can't.
Some crazy number. Yeah, you'd have to express it.
It would be like, what do they call that?
Exponents or whatever. I'm not a mathy guy, but
something like
something times something to the 10 to the something power.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Which like ordinary ass people are like, what? And then you're like, okay, the number of stars and like, and then they're still like, I don't have any frame of reference.
No, I'm trying to remember. It was I read 2 audiobooks. Well, read/heard 2 audiobooks last year, and I'm trying to remember which one it was. But they start off the book with a lot of analogies about numbers, like stacking hamburgers to the moon. Anyway, because it's hard to think in like
shit.
Yeah. Well, it was either Welcome to the Universe or I'll look it up later. It was either Welcome to the Universe or the Black Hole War. Those are my 2 like kind of get into astrophysics. Got some other books to read too that are paper, but we'll see. Anyway, did we solve the world's crisis yet or not?
I think we did.
Yeah,
I think we did.
Yeah,
mission accomplished.
Yeah, now I'm jealous of your bell. I need to have something.
Oh man, everybody needs a bell. Everybody needs one. Just having it right there, just arm's length. I'm like, oh yeah, it's an accent to all the beautiful stuff. Shit, man, where are we even going? This was just like This is the you know, and let's tie it back to the intro to the book that started off this whole thing with Jordan Peterson, because it's like he flirted with the kind of futility of, oh my gosh, yeah, Bowie. Oh my gosh.
He was taking a nap.
Oh,
He's
baby.
kind of mad at me because this is my bell.
Oh. He kind of flirted with the futility, the feeling of futility that we as individuals come into this with. It's like, well, what the hell can we do?
Yeah.
You know, and it really is like we can do a lot more than we think we can. That's for damn sure. And thank you for bringing Puppy into the feed, because that is just adorable.
Yeah, since you get a bell,
Adorable,
I get a
man.
puppy. He's like, I just want to sleep.
Oh my
What are you doing?
God.
I want sleepy time.
I want chill dogs, man. All my dogs are so fucking hyper, and they just want to play all the time. I'm just like, can you just be a
he's
kitty
that way
cat and
sometimes.
cuddle? Oh, you little cuddle
He's like
buddy.
Booty. Sometimes he's like this, and sometimes he wants to play.
How old is he?
He'll be 3 in June.
Oh my God, I want a little dog so bad. I like little dogs and big dogs, man. I want a really little dog. Oh, so cute. Just like I just want to get him a purse and put him in it and take him to Target.
Now he's attacking me.
Oh.
Now that he's awake, he's like, you're gonna attack.
Little baby. So yeah, man. I mean, we're kind of getting at we're resonating very strongly on something that's kind of like I've already kind of started to sketch out the ideas for how this on my own show. I've been framing this as kind of like Candle in the Dark, which is the series that I started with Connor, around searching for, you know, meaning and truth and stuff, and just using our different candles that we've all been gifted with, however you want to illustrate that. It's and this and I'd mentioned very at the beginning of the feed that this is literally the concept for one of the next episodes of that, which is moral axioms for a new world. It's like, if we get to start from scratch and we have to write the rules of the new world, you know, if we leave the valley behind us that's just burned to the ground, and we get to the top of the mountain and we see a new valley below, and we get to build something new there, what is it going to look like? So I have a feeling that you are going to be one of my superheroes on that project. And as well, this like new thing that doesn't even have a name yet, that it's this Sunday morning thing. I want it to be a Sunday morning thing. It should probably be a stream like this. And just try to get as many people in this kind of I don't even in the Hall of the Universe, just to I don't even know about calling it the Hall of the Universe, because even that feels too small. As weird as that is, the universe feels too small to really kind of encompass the thing that we're getting at here, which is just it's the human experience. I mean, this is mind wave. This is why my whole show exists. Is
something like something to do with Tardigrades for sure. The Tardigrade universe.
I was telling. I had to check in with my dad because he's in San Diego, and obviously California just got locked down.
We're okay. We're okay.
That's the general consensus that I've been getting. I have lots of friends back there. It's where I'm from, so it's that I've been hearing that most everybody's okay. So, but
yeah,
he had invoked this. He's like, "We'll call it the Church of Zen." Oh, with because last name Zeno Zen. Oh, and I was like, oh, that's kind of clever. A little play on words, because it is kind of Zen. I mean, this is just like, see, it's just like tying it even down to language. I'm like, any word, any like nothing really feels big enough. Like the cosmos,
Oh,
it doesn't
I
even feel to have.
feel like somehow the word or the phrase should have to do with the word balance.
Mm.
And um, a lot of what I kind of would hope to try to do is okay, with a lot of philosophy and religion and everything else, the tricky thing about it was it would get so like the common people couldn't hardly talk about it. They just have to be like, oh yeah, that holy
Mm.
person or scientist or whatever professional said gobbledygook word, so do that. Um,
Gets
so
convoluted, and then shit
well,
gets
yeah,
lost in
but
all these archaic
I would
metaphors
like
and
to
shit.
think
Like, it needs to be
of
kind of concise.
well and somewhat common language, and sort of
Yeah.
like that's why sometimes I'll go and I'll read dozens of books and I'll start to like leave the planet, but then I'll try to like bring myself down to reality because sometimes that's the weakness with even like Jordan Peterson and um somewhat Noah or Yuval Noah Harari, although he does a little bit better of staying in the realm of what people can grasp. But that's what we need to consciously try to do is be like, let's put this in language that everybody can grasp. And that's why something to do with balance is good because I feel like everybody can grasp that concept and and that word. Because I was almost going to say something related to with your Zen idea, the yin yang or Tao idea, which I think is important, but that's also just about balance.
The themes that have been kind of recurring in my own over almost a year now of trying to actually articulate this, the themes that keep coming back are the campfire and the circle. The
Oh yeah,
circle, it feels absolutely fundamental to whatever this is. I'm calling it a circle of friends. It's, like the Ubuntu. It's like common village of humanity, so to speak. Um, Campfire, fireside. I mean, all of those things feel kind of. I don't know. Everything kind of feels generic to me. We're gonna brainstorm on this. We're gonna find something special. I know we are, because it's like it
yeah.
is one kind of thing, but like it's gonna gonna take a minute. But we have been going for a half an hour, and I see
They're
people are
saying
piecing out. Chandler is
okay.
taking
They
off.
just did
Thank you for
that.
joining,
So
Chandler.
thanks, Chandler. Yeah. Okay. We can wrap it up.
But yeah, man, this
Cool.
this
Cool.
was
Cool.
this was great. So for all of my viewers over at the Mindwave universe, please make sure to go check out Daily Archetype. Get the hell in there right away. If you like these conversations, man, and that this has been me. I'm Jenner, Mindwave.
Yeah. We'll do more of these, and some of them. I might even. Some of them might just be for a couple minutes. They won't always be an hour, 2 or 3 hours. And yeah, hopefully we'll get more people involved too.
Yeah,
But
man.
I know people are kind of all over the place right now with being there for their families and all that. So it's
Yes.
interesting. But okay, good stuff. I guess we'll wrap it up, and I'll see you around.
Yeah. Peace among world guides. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, thank you.